Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we plunge headfirst into the stories that matter, bringing you the crucial insights and surprising details you need without the information overload. Today, imagine a political firestorm, not sparked by a new policy or some scandal, but by pointed comments from a senior government minister about a former Supreme Court judge.
And what makes this truly electrifying?
Exactly. That judge is now the opposition's candidate for a very high office. This isn't just a clash of personalities. This is, well, a fascinating exploration of judicial independence, the power of political rhetoric, and maybe even the foundations of democracy itself, all unfolding right now in India.
It's a truly gripping controversy, isn't it? A high-stakes drama that perfectly illuminates that delicate balance of power in one of the world's largest democracies. On one side, we have Union Home Minister Amit Shah, a really powerful and influential figure. And on the other, former Supreme Court Justice B. Sudershan Reddy, now chosen as the opposition's candidate for vice president. Our mission today is to methodically dissect Shah's controversial remarks, understand the landmark 2011 Supreme Court judgment that's, at the very heart of this entire debate.
That specific ruling.
Yeah. And then zoom out a bit to explore the broader implications for India's judicial system and, well, the evolving tenor of its political discourse.
And for you, our listener, understanding this deep dive offers more than just a glimpse into Indian politics. It reveals how a 14-year-old judicial ruling can suddenly be thrust into the white-hot spotlight of a national election.
Yeah, quite suddenly.
Challenging us to consider the sanctity of judicial decisions and the incredible weight of words from those in power. By the end of this deep dive, you'll gain real clarity on the forces shaping democratic values globally, using India as our powerful case study.
That sets the context perfectly. So let's maybe zero in on the spark itself, the very ignition point of this whole controversy.
Absolutely. The scene is August 22, 2025, in Kerala. Union Home Minister Amit Shah is addressing a gathering, but he's not just giving a typical rally speech. He's delivering a direct and, frankly, rather intense critique, choosing this moment to launch a very specific attack.
And he specifically targeted B. Sudershan Reddy, who, as we mentioned, is the opposition's candidate for vice president in the upcoming September 9, 2025 election.
Right. The election's very close.
Very close. And the accusation from Shah was stark, almost jarring. He claimed Reddy supported Naxalism through his involvement in the 2011 Salwa Judum judgment. That's a powerful, politically loaded accusation.
Especially coming from a home minister whose job includes internal security.
Yeah, exactly.
And he didn't stop there. Shah took it a step further, suggesting that if the Supreme Court hadn't ruled against Salwa Judum, which was this controversial anti-Maoist militia, Naxal violence in India would have been entirely eradicated by 2020.
Wow, that's a huge claim.
It's a huge claim. This statement isn't just a critique. It's a profound implication that Reddy's judicial decision was maybe influenced by an ideology that actually hampered the government's efforts against left-wing extremism.
So, effectively blaming a judicial pronouncement for ongoing security challenges.
Precisely.
The impact of these remarks, well, you can't really overstate it. Coming from such a senior cabinet minister, they were far more than just a critique of a legal ruling.
Much more.
They were a direct attack on a former judge's character, his motives, his judicial integrity. And this immediately ignited a furious national debate, raising these fundamental questions about, where are the boundaries for political rhetoric?
Yeah, how far can you go?
And what about the sacred role of the judiciary within a functioning democracy? It's a line that, once crossed, can have very long-lasting consequences for public trust.
And this brings us right to the core of the matter, doesn't it? To truly grasp Shah's comments and their weight, we need to rewind to 2011 and understand that landmark Supreme Court ruling. Can you maybe walk us through what the Salwa Judum judgment was really about and why it became such a flashpoint?
Absolutely. At its heart was the Salwa Judum movement itself. This was a vigilante effort started back in 2005 in Chhattisgarh, specifically aimed at countering Maoist insurgents, often called Naxalites.
Okay.
The name itself, Salwa Judum, translates to peace march in the local Gandhi language. But what made it particularly controversial was that it was state-backed.
The state was involved.
Yes, a state-backed initiative that controversially armed tribal youth as special police officers, or SPOs, to fight these rebels. So imagine the state essentially deputizing untrained civilians,
Often very young people.
often young, often from the very communities caught in the crossfire, to engage in armed conflict.
That sounds like a truly desperate measure, maybe, with potentially severe consequences. What does it tell us about the pressures governments face when tackling these kinds of internal conflicts, and what were the real-world impacts?
Well, it certainly speaks to the immense pressures in conflict zones, where the state struggles to establish authority. But the consequences were, frankly, dire. From its very beginning, Salwa Judum faced fierce criticism, both domestically and internationally. There were widespread, documented reports.
From human rights groups.
Yes, from groups like Amnesty International, local activists detailing human rights abuses, burning villages, forced displacement of tribal communities into these state-run camps, and indiscriminate violence. Critics argued it just fatally blurred the lines between civilians and combatants, putting these already vulnerable tribal populations at immense risk, often caught between the Naxalites and the Salwa Judum. It wasn't just a theoretical problem, it was a humanitarian crisis on the ground.
So the court steps in. What was their pronouncement in the face of such a controversial state-backed initiative?
The court's ruling in July 2011 was incredibly significant and very clear. The case, formerly known as Nandini Sundar and others versus State of Chhattisgarh, was decided by a bench, including Justices B. Sudershan Reddy and S.S. Nijar. The Supreme Court declared the use of tribal youth as SPOs unconstitutional and ordered the complete disbanding of Salwa Judum.
Completely disbanded.
Completely. Their reasoning was foundational, principled. Arming untrained civilians for armed conflict violated fundamental rights, particularly the right to life and liberty under the Constitution, and fundamentally undermined the rule of law. The court was unequivocal. They said the state could not outsource its fundamental responsibility to maintain law and order to vigilante groups.
It sounds so clear-cut from a legal standpoint.
It does. It wasn't just about a specific program. It was a reaffirmation of the state's monopoly on legitimate violence, a core principle.
It's still remarkable, though, that such a clear judicial pronouncement could become so politically contentious later on. What were the immediate reactions back in 2011?
Well, the ruling definitely had a mixed reception, which is crucial to understanding the current controversy. Human rights advocates hailed it as a monumental victory for constitutional principles.
A vindication.
A vindication of the rights of marginalized tribal communities. They saw it as a powerful check on executive overreach. However, it also drew significant criticism from those who genuinely saw Salwa Judum as an effective, even if controversial, tool against Naxalism.
They thought it was working or necessary?
They believed it was necessary, perhaps, for local self-defense. And it's this very judgment that Amit Shah revived in 2025, framing it not just as wrong, but as a major obstacle, almost a betrayal, in India's ongoing fight against extremism. So this case isn't just about a past ruling. It's a stark reminder that the judiciary often steps into these difficult areas where executive solutions fall short or are problematic.
And that makes them a target.
It inevitably makes them a target when political solutions are sought or when past decisions are, reevaluated through a purely political lens.
That makes perfect sense. So with such a direct attack from a high-ranking minister on a former judge's integrity and this landmark ruling, how did the broader legal community respond? Was there a pushback?
Oh, the response was swift and powerful, a really unified front. Just 3 days after Shah's speech, on August 25, 2025, a statement emerged from a group of 18 retired judges.
18. That's quite a number.
It is. And this included prominent former Supreme Court justices like Kurian Joseph, Madan B. Lokur, J. Chillamswar, along with former High Court Chief Justices and other distinguished jurists. They didn't just express concern, they issued a joint condemnation.
A formal condemnation.
Yes, which is rare and significant, a collective voice from the judiciary speaking out.
And what was the essence of their message? What did they want the public and perhaps politicians to understand about Shah's comments and the judgment itself?
Their message was absolutely unequivocal and deeply principled. They described Shah's comments as unfortunate and, importantly, a prejudicial misinterpretation of the Salwa Judum judgment.
Misinterpretation.
Yes. They were crystal clear. The ruling did not endorse Naxalism. Not at all. Instead, it was fundamentally grounded in constitutional principles and the protection of human rights. They really wanted to emphasize the integrity and independence of the judicial process.
They were trying to separate the law from the politics.
Precisely, making it abundantly clear that judicial decisions are about upholding the Constitution, not about political alignment or ideology.
And a collective statement like that from retired jurists, particularly in such a politically charged atmosphere, that carries significant weight, doesn't it? What kind of warning did they issue about the potential ramifications?
It truly does carry immense weight. This group of jurists explicitly cautioned that such misrepresentations, especially coming from a high-ranking political figure, could have a chilling effect on judicial independence.
A chilling effect. What does that mean in practice?
It implies a potential to intimidate current judges, making them perhaps more hesitant to issue rulings that might be politically unpopular or challenge executive actions. It could erode the judiciary's ability to act without fear or favor.
Undermining that core function.
Exactly. It's a fundamental threat to the separation of powers.
They also made a powerful call for civility in political discourse, didn't they?
They did, very explicitly. They appealed for restraint, particularly during this vice presidential campaign, urging leaders to avoid name-calling and personal attacks. As they put it quite eloquently, while the campaign for the office of the Vice President of India may well be ideological, it can be conducted civilly and with dignity.
A plea for standards?
Yes, their message was clear. The judiciary upholds the Constitution, not any political agenda, and political debates should respect the institutions that form the backbone of democracy. It was really a plea for a higher standard of public debate.
So how did Justice Reddy himself, the direct target of these remarks, respond to such a high-profile accusation? Did he get drawn into the political back and forth?
Well, on August 23, 2025, B. Sudershan Reddy, in an interview with the Press Trust of India, PTI, responded with what I think was remarkable restraint and dignity.
He kept his cool.
Very much so. He explicitly declined to engage in what he called a political slugfest, emphasizing that the Salwa Judum judgment wasn't his decision alone, it was the decision of the entire Supreme Court bench.
Right, emphasizing the institution.
Exactly, which really highlighted his commitment to the institutional integrity of the judiciary, even when facing direct personal criticism.
And he offered that subtle but very pointed observation too, didn't he?
Yes, he did. It was quite nuanced but powerful. He said if Amit Shah had read the judgment, perhaps he would not have made that comment. That's all I say, and leave it there.
Wow, just leave it there.
Just leave it there.
Yeah.
The brevity speaks volumes, I think. It wasn't an attack, but rather an assertion of the judgment's legal soundness, implicitly suggesting maybe a lack of understanding on the part of his accuser.
It maintains that judicial temperament.
Precisely. Prioritizing legal principle over political posturing.
Beyond just defending the judgment, though, Reddy also used this moment to frame the upcoming vice presidential election in a broader context, right?
He did. He framed the election as a contest of ideas. He described himself as a liberal constitutional Democrat, drawing a very clear contrast with the National Democratic Alliance NDA candidate, C.P. Radhakrishnan.
Who he characterized differently.
Yes, whom he characterized as a quintessential RSS man, referring to the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, the prominent Hindu nationalist organization with deep ties to the ruling party. This move kind of elevates the debate beyond personal attacks to a discussion of foundational values and political ideologies.
Which is a powerful way to campaign.
Absolutely, for such an important office.
And this whole controversy, it's unfolding against a very specific backdrop, isn't it? This election for vice president isn't just a regular event, it was triggered by something unexpected.
That's right. The election was necessitated by the sudden resignation of the incumbent vice president, Jagdeep Dhankar, on July 21st, 2025.
Yeah.
He cited health reasons.
Okay.
So this triggered a midterm election under Article 67A of the Indian Constitution. And the timeline has been quite compressed. Nominations closed August 21st. Scrutiny was the 22nd.
The day of Shah's speech.
Exactly. Withdrawals were allowed until August 25th, and the election itself is slated for September 9, 2025. This tight schedule just further amplifies the political intensity surrounding everything.
And who are the key players, again, in this specific VP election?
The players are indeed significant. The opposition NDA bloc unanimously chose B. Sudershan Reddy, the former Chief Justice and Supreme Court judge we've been discussing.
A clear signal there.
A very clear signal, emphasizing constitutional values and judicial independence. The ruling NDA, led by PM Modi and JP Nadda, chose C.P. Radhakrishnan, known for his strong ties to the RSS, as we mentioned. And this election, it's really far more than ceremonial. It has direct implications for the balance of power in the Rajya Sabha, India's upper house of parliament.
Because the VP chairs the Rajya Sabha.
Precisely. The vice president serves as chairperson, holding significant procedural influence. This includes the power to cast tie-breaking votes.
Which could be crucial.
Absolutely crucial. Imagine a scenario where the government lacks a clear majority in the Rajya Sabha. The vice president's role in guiding legislative proceedings, even casting that deciding vote, becomes immensely powerful. So this election isn't just about a symbolic figurehead, it's about tangible legislative leverage.
So this really brings us to the core issues illuminated by this whole episode.
Yeah.
Judicial independence, the complexities of Naxalism, and the nature of political discourse itself. The judge's statement really brings into sharp focus this critical issue of potential threats to judicial independence. India's judiciary is such a vital cornerstone of its democracy, that crucial check on executive and legislative power.
It is.
And the concern over a chilling effect on judges isn't exactly new, is it? We can recall that 2022 instance where many retired judges, civil servants, and defense veterans criticized Supreme Court remarks in another sensitive case, the Nupur Sharma case. It suggests a recurring tension.
It does seem to be a recurring point of friction. And what's striking here is how the Salwa Judum judgment stands as such a powerful example of, well, judicial courage. By striking down a state-backed vigilante movement, Justices Reddy and Nijar really underscored the principle that the rule of law can't be sacrificed for expediency, even when facing a serious security threat like Naxalism.
Right, even in tough times.
Exactly. This fundamental role of the judiciary as a guardian of constitutional values is now under intense scrutiny again. It reminds us that sometimes the hardest decisions are also the most constitutionally sound ones. It's really a testament to the idea that the state's power, even in a crisis, isn't absolute.
And Shah's claim that Naxalism would have ended by 2020 without the Salwa Judum judgment. Honestly, that feels like it oversimplifies a profoundly complex issue. Can you elaborate a bit on what makes Naxalism such a deeply rooted and multifaceted challenge in India?
Oh, absolutely. It's far more than just a security challenge. It's deeply intertwined with narratives about development, land rights, state presence or lack thereof in marginalized regions.
Issues politicians might simplify.
Exactly. Often simplified for electoral gain. Naxalism is deeply rooted in socioeconomic inequalities and, importantly, historical grievances. Think of areas where government services are sparse, where tribal communities' traditional land rights are often threatened by mining or infrastructure projects.
Feeling left behind.
Feeling left behind, marginalized by larger economic policies. These are the fertile grounds where Naxalism, the Maoist insurgency, finds its strongest support. It harnesses agrarian discontent and perceived state neglect, turning historical grievances into armed resistance.
So Salwa Judum was just one tactic.
It was one strategy, yes, but its reliance on arming civilians drew widespread human rights concerns, and many argue often proved counterproductive by escalating violence. Critics argue Shah's comments deflect from the systemic issues poverty, lack of infrastructure, governance failures that truly fuel Naxalism.
Focusing on a court ruling instead.
Precisely. India's counterinsurgency strategy is typically multi-pronged. Security operations, development projects, outreach. Suggesting a single judicial ruling thwarted victory really ignores the deep-seated nature of the problem.
That makes so much sense, connecting the historical grievances to the ongoing conflict. And this raises that important question about the nature of political discourse itself. This controversy really forces us to examine how leaders choose to engage.
Indeed. The retired judge's call for civil and dignified campaigning is a very clear plea to elevate public debate above personal attacks and misrepresentations. In a diverse democracy, leaders have, arguably, a profound responsibility to model respectful dialogue, especially when discussing core institutions like the judiciary, which depend so heavily on public trust.
And framing the judgment as pro-Naxal.
That framing risks undermining the judiciary's authority and public confidence. It stands in such sharp contrast to Reddy's more principled and restrained approach. This whole incident serves as a crucial reminder of the power of political rhetoric, not just to persuade, but also potentially to erode foundational democratic institutions.
So what we've really seen through this deep dive is a truly compelling clash of words, of judgments, of ideologies, testing the very resilience of India's democratic institutions. It highlights that constant tension between executive power and judicial independence, and between the heat of political campaigning and, well, constitutional respect.
Right, and the Salwa Judum judgment, at its heart, it was about protecting the rights of some of India's most vulnerable citizens, these tribal communities caught in the crossfire. This current debate, rekindling a decision from 14 years ago, really invites you, the listener, to consider, how do past judicial rulings continue to shape the political present, especially when they touch on such fundamental issues of state power versus individual rights?
And maybe, what is our collective responsibility in demanding not just robust debate, which is healthy, but also clarity and civility in public discourse? How do we ensure our democratic values remain protected, not just in India, but in any democracy facing similar pressures? Something to ponder as the story continues to unfold.